Christian, you got to come over here. She says, they're going to take my house. They're just going to haul it to the dumpster. You can save it, can't you? I said, well, Dave, I can save it. I said, well, it's 2 stories. He said, you're going to have to get it down the road. But they said Al Capone stayed there. I said, wow, that's pretty good. In the 30s, he said, yeah, it was a hideout for him. And I got to do the first disappearing edge pool. It was the first disappearing edge pool in Naples.
What is it called?
It's the vanishing edge where the water drips over the back edge.
Yeah.
Of course, now it's just like old hat. Everybody does it. But back then, this was like 25 years ago. Are you the guys saving houses in Bonita Springs? I said, well, yes, I am. Well, I have one for you if you have enough space for it. I said, okay, what are you talking about? She goes, it's the Haldeman house. I said, oh, come on, is this a prank call?
What if I told you that Florida's most legendary history was once headed for a dumpster? Imagine a house that stood for 150 years, a place where Al Capone allegedly hid out, where the pioneers of Naples first broke ground. Imagine someone telling you, save it or it's gone forever. Today's guest didn't just say yes, he picked up the house and he moved it. Meet Christian Busk. He's a 5th-generation Floridian, a visionary landscape architect who designed the first ever vanishing edge pool in Naples, and a man who literally rescues history from the brink of destruction. From buying historic homes for a single dollar to uncovering 19th century cypress log foundations. Christian's life is a masterclass in preservation, passion, and seeing the beauty in what everyone else has forgotten. This isn't just a conversation about architecture. It's a journey through time with a man who refuses to let the past be demolished. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for taking time to do it.
Thank you. I enjoy being here too. It's funny that Naples was so much like the East Coast in certain areas. You didn't have, it wasn't Fort Lauderdale. It wasn't Miami. The northern parts, again, didn't get the traffic until they opened up I-95. But anyway, so I kind of grew up in a kind of a rural area.
North Palm Beach it was.
Yeah, North Palm Beach. It's up to PTA Boulevard. You know that. Now everybody knows where that is. Mm-hmm. And we lived right off the Intercoastal, so that was just idyllic. And it's great to grow up that way. But my dad's and my mother's parents, they were born and raised. We're 5th-generation Floridians, so.
Wow. Really?
Got a big kick out of, they lived in Plant City, which is right, I mean, there was where the 2 railroads crossed, and so all the winter produce, they grew it and they packed it there and it went. So it was like, just everything was really from the late 1800s until like the 1940s, and it still is. But anyways, Plant City has grown, but not the historic
Plant City near Tampa area or Plant City?
It is. It's between Tampa and Lakeland.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of forgotten in time, I think. But anyways.
Is that where they have the Strawberry Festival?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, we used to go there every holiday we get, and so you get to see a little bit of the history because you wouldn't find it. Well, if you would find it in West Palm if you went in the older areas of West Palm Beach, where Palm Beach really took off in the 20s, and so they had a lot of architecture from the 20s, a lot of mission style things. And of course, we'd skip school and go see the houses in Palm Beach, and that was kind of fun. But the Plant City area had a lot of historic properties, all different style, a lot of old Florida vernacular and some mission style, Spanish architecture, which was popular at that time. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I didn't realize I was getting familiar with it. So, when we started doing work here, I started working here in Naples. I was hired before I graduated out of school.
You're a Gator, right?
I'm a Gator. Yeah. But so he came to Naples, and Naples was so backward. It was just there was nothing going on. Of course, I'll just tell you a little bit about landscape architects. So I graduated with 2 degrees, landscape architecture and horticulture. My love was really golf courses where I worked all through high school. But I wanted to really design golf courses. I thought it's so interesting. It's like nature personified. But anyways, got to Naples, and people were still, believe it or not, they were still going to the Anthony pool catalog and picking 1 through 20. Which pool do I want? The kidney shape, the rectangle with a little piece on the side. So said it didn't really work for these lots. Were all different sizes, and the houses were different. You had the model homes that were being built back then. So you know what? As soon as I get to Naples, I just started designing pools. I said, let's don't look at those catalogs. It doesn't really work for your house. So that's kind of what I got to work on. I got to do the Donahue's first house on the beach. That was exciting.
All right, really?
Donahue.
Oh, wow.
And back then he did have like 13 children. Then he had 65 grandchildren, and now it's a lot. But anyways, that was kind of fun. I got to tell you a little bit about that. But anyways, that's part of the history. But I got to work with Mr. DeGroot, and that's the residence. That's the Orange Gates, the Oriental one that's on
Yeah.
the market.
Yeah.
But and then I got to work with Donahue on his house in 1987. We finished his house on the Point. So that was
That
kind
house
of
is there that long. I didn't realize that. I
funny,
didn't
isn't
know
that
they've
funny?
been there
Yeah.
that long. Yeah, wow.
So there's a lot of history there.
I love seeing the we have some old newspaper clippings of lots for sale in Port Royal for $60,000
right?
in 1977. Yeah, it kills me when I see that.
That's
It
hard
hurts.
hard to believe. But I didn't realize how much that you really, after working with all this new architecture and all through the years of working in Naples, you saw old Naples and you saw it, like slipping away.
Yeah, because old Naples, the real old Naples, were fantastic.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to. I got this opportunity to save a house in Fort Myers, well, actually Bonita, and it was an old Jim Walters, and I had some friends that were living in it. It was just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and the lady that lived there said, "Hey, you can save this. Just move it on a lot." And I said, "Well, I've got a lot. I think I could do that." So I picked it up, and I paid the guy like $5,000 for it.
Picked
I
it
the
up.
house up. Yeah,
Picked the house up.
Well, it was up off the ground, to begin with.
right.
So you just had to, kind of lower it back down on the low boy, And so I moved that, and I did that for $75,000. It was kind of fun. I actually did an apartment down below because they had changed the zoning of my lot from a duplex to like single family, and I still wanted to do a duplex. So I did. I moved the house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath.
To the Bonita area? Or
It was like actually right across from the beach, and so I moved it not even a mile away.
That was before Bonita was its own.
Yeah,
Before it was its
It
own
was
city.
a city.
Yeah.
so that was my first endeavor. It was really a great buy, $75,000, and I sold it to a friend pretty much for the same amount because I just wanted to save the house. It was like an old Jim Walters that they did during the war, and that was all happening in Fort
So
Myers
that
Beach.
was not. You hadn't done anything like that before, where
No.
you just
no.
saw this place and I want to preserve it, and this is how I can do that. Because that's really thinking outside of the box. You gotta save something.
That was kind of fun. Well, the lady I was working with, she said, "Well, when I first bought the lot, she got me to buy these 2 duplex lots," and I said, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with them." She said, "Well, I'll tell you what I did with them." She says, "I bought one of those Jim Walters homes. It's like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath." He said, "All you do is put a wall down the middle. You got a 1-bedroom, 1-bath on one side. Just add a kitchen to it, and the other one already has the kitchen. So then you end up with a duplex, and you don't have to pay for one." So I did that, and I lived in part of it. So it's the only way to catch up from renting an apartment,
Yeah.
So did that, and then after that, I had the other lot, and that's when they had changed the zoning. And so I said, "Well, I want to finish this." So that's when I did that. But then, like a year or two later, funny part, there was an article that came out of the Bonita Banner. It said, "You can buy this house for $1," and it was like a gambrel style house. It was in a peach color, which kind of strange color, but I said it looks so unusual. It looks so much like what I'd seen back in Plant City, where my grandparents were from. I said, "Gosh, that's insane! I could do that. That sounds easy." So I bought it for $1, and I had to buy a lot for it, and I decided to buy this entire corner, which was 4 lots, and I did that, and I said, "Okay." Bought that on time, and then I said, "Oh, that's not really right for this house. It's kind of a nice house." So I bought the lot across the street from it, which was 3 lots. They're only 50-foot lots, but it looked right down this creek. I said, "That's really perfect." So I moved it on there. That one cost $500,000 to renovate. It was all varnished beadboard, and the people that had done the work before, they'd sprayed it, and then all the shellac dripped, and so there was bubbles down the. And this is all chevron beadboard, and 100 years old. So it was a 1913 house.
Wow.
Yeah, I was originally from, the original owner was, they called him 3-Barrel Williams because he wasn't such a good shot with a double-barrel shotgun, so he had the one on top. Yeah, so that worked pretty good. Anyways, so then we call it Williams Packard because the Packard people lived there after that. But anyways, lifted it, moved it, put it back down, and actually the pieces of the house didn't really go well. They had like a carport that looked very strange. So I moved the carport around to the one side, and I made it a music room, and then made the architecture look right. I got it all balanced, and then of course I got to design the landscape, and then I got to do all the interiors, and then they wanted to do stories on it because it was like pretty unusual. No one was saving houses in Bonita. There weren't many to save like Naples. So anyways, got to do that. Got that one finished, and the funny part about those things, you say, are there really ghosts around here? Well, I decided the second floor had a 6-foot ceiling. So you got up there and like, that's too low. So I knocked the ceiling out and I raised the collar ties. And so I made it pretty nice up there. And so everything was new upstairs. I took the wood siding that was around the original fireplace upstairs, a little tiny 18-inch wide fireplace. Got all that done. And then I just kind of, so we had taken everything out upstairs and rebuilt it like with new light colored wood. And so we'd make the ceilings look higher. And it's funny, I had these guys from Naples. They weren't busy at that time. They put the whole thing back together. And some of the ceilings we made a complete pyramid in the kitchen. And it took excellent carpentry to do that and have all the beadboard match up in the right spot. So we got everything done, and they sprayed the whole thing. I had hand sanded all those walls downstairs, and I had it resprayed with a shellac. It turned out beautiful. And about 2 weeks later, there was 100-year-old shot all over the floor upstairs. I don't know where it came from.
Oh, wow.
You know. But it's kind of like celebration. But anyways, that one turned out really great. And then
Are these online? Is there any way we could see these? Because I think
they are.
Yeah,
that's the Williams Packard. It's actually listed on the register for Bonita Springs.
Okay.
So I did that one, and then I got so excited about that one, and I lived there for a little bit. Then
it'd be great for people to be able to see to put these in.
We could
on the
the
video portion of this. Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll let you. You know what? I'll let you shoot the article.
Great.
It was in N magazine when they were publishing. And then we did the Nutting House became available. There was a derelict house around the corner. So I kind of been looking for historic houses to save because I knew they were just going to tear them down. They were so poorly maintained. This one was right on the bend of the river, and that story was it was the old Heitman brothers out of Fort Myers. They supposedly moved the Wayside Inn from the Royal Palm Hotel in Fort Myers to, I guess that's Ragsdale and Old 41. It used to sit on the corner. And I tried to save that too, but it was a 2-story hotel. But they were supposed to have had that house there. It was on the bend in the river, so it was like a perfect spot for a trading post. So they were selling furs, and they were trapping and fishing and hunting. So that was a popular spot. But that was built in 1915. So these are old structures, because they had a sawmill over there, just near Livingston Road and Dean Street.
Oh, yeah, on the Imperial? And that? No kidding.
Yeah, there's a sawmill there.
Wow.
So anyways, then that house, I went by to see, first time I went by to see it, that's also in the history of Bonita Springs. They did a video of us in front of that, and they showed the house like as it was, and then you can see how it is today. But anyways, I went in there for the first time. I kind of was looking around. I knocked on the door. There was no answer, so I said, I thought I'd just try the knob because it didn't look like anybody was there. There's no driveway or anything. So, and it opened up and said, all the furniture was in place. Everything was like it was. And there was a coffin on a table, like a child's coffin. It's like, wow. Okay, it's about 4 feet long. I don't know who didn't make it here, but it was very eerie. So I just kind of got out of there. The next time I went by there was about 9 months later. And it had been boarded up, do not enter, this has been condemned. So I went around the back and I looked up under there and I said, this is strange. I said, the whole floor is missing in this lower part of the house, this back of the house. So I hoisted myself up in there. I said, I'm going to see what this is all about. Well, it appears that somebody, actually, I called the owner of the house and I said, hey, what are you doing with that house over there? She said, well, they won't let me fix it for more than 50%. That's FEMA rules. And I realized because I was gonna make it something totally different. But I'm just gonna demolish it now. So I said, well, I could save it if you want. She goes, oh, would you really? I said, yeah, you could pay me the cost of the dumpster. I said, so she did. She paid me $2,500, and I decided to move the house. Well, what it turned out to be was she said, hey, I didn't tell you that since the time you were looking at it before and this time, she goes, I had some friends who were working on a house in Ovida or something, and they wanted some pieces of the house. And she says, I just told them they could take anything they wanted. It's just, they took all the floor. They took all the windows, all the moldings, all the baseboard. There was nothing left but the shell and the window shaker that was in one of the windows. Okay, that was all that was there. And I thought, oh my gosh. Well, they took off the newer floor. There was actually the old floor underneath it.
Oh, great.
Which was neat. But it had been patched together many times. So that was a challenge. And it had a lot of termite damage. So I moved it and the way it was and added a front porch to it, added a bedroom to it, and made it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And it was amazing. I knocked out all the ceiling and exposed the wonderful rafters. And then I, proceeded to do everything you do in a modern home. And it was beautiful. I mean, I lived there for a while. And that was fun. Then the one came available for so we have a great clay artist in Bonita, Dave Kellum, and I had known him for different functions. Anyways, he was living in this old house. It was on where Livingston Road was going through. He goes, Christian, you got to come over here. She says, they're going to take my house. They're just going to haul it to the dumpster and to the landfill, and you're going to have to you can save it, can't you? I said, well, Dave, I can save it. I said, well, it's 2 stories. He said, you're going to have to get it down the road. I said, okay, well, let me come by and see it. So I did. They had a lot of termite damage on the floor. But I went over there. I said, oh, okay, well, if they're going to give it to me, I guess. Well, it took unfortunately, I had to go buy a lot. There was $250,000 to put it on because I could only move it 3 lots because it was 2-story and there were power lines everywhere. Oh. So I moved it over. But they said Al Capone stayed there. I said, wow, that's pretty good in the 30s. He said, yeah, it was a hideout for him. I said, he said, he was there. And the story is that he liked one of the girls that was working at the Wayside Inn, the only place you could get food back then. He said, sure, he liked her so much he took her back to Miami. I said, well, that's a good story. So I think there's there's spirits there.
That's cool. Oh, wow.
I had spirits visit me there. That was the strangest thing I've ever had happen. But some of those have stories too. Yeah. But got to fix that one up. That was also in the Inn magazine. You can
oh, great.
Take pictures of the article.
Yeah, you need to see that.
That was fun. So anyways, I did that. I've moved 7 structures, but each one has its own challenges because if you're trying to make it livable, like anybody would buy just a house in Naples, everybody wants all the luxuries,
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, it's fun to put them together. Then, of course, before I got to finish all those, the Coruscant Park had a structure there that they didn't want anymore. That was Nola Boomer. Her parents owned the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And her grandmother came to the Estero area to be one of the Coruscants, donate her time because she was a single woman, which most of them were. And anyways, so she had several structures. She was part of that group until I guess the Cyrus Teed wasn't doing what he said, like being celibate. So she picked up her marbles and took her house across the river and put it on a 140-acre lot. And she's donated 100 acres to the city of city of Estero, but she has a life estate on the other 30 acres, which is this beautiful lodge-type home, which I got to see. And she offered the little cottage that was called the Caretaker's Cottage, Garcia's Caretaker Cottage. Anyways, so she said, well, the city of Estero was supposed to come take this. And I gave them the $7,000 to move it and say, they just kept the money. But she said, would you like to have it? I said, yeah, I really would. So we moved that one. And oh my gosh, what happened was 2007 hit and the real estate market took a plunge, including things I was trying to do. But so I had that structure sitting on skids. I had the one from the Al Capone house, which that was on skids over on Dean Street. And then this girl calls me from the Friends of the Collier County Museum. She said, this is Molly Reed from the Friends of the Collier County Museum. She says, are you the guys saving houses in Bonita Springs? I said, well, yes, I am. She says, well, I have one for you if you have enough space for it. I said, okay, what are you talking about? She goes, it's the Haldeman house. I said, oh, come on, is this a prank call? And she goes, no, I'm serious. She goes, I said, they've been fighting over that for 4 years in the newspapers. She goes, she goes, I know. I said, but she says, the city of Naples didn't want it. Parks and Recreation didn't want it. Historic Society didn't want it. And there was one other entity. She says, if they don't want it 2 weeks, tell me you're going to take it because they want it off that property. They sold the property. So 2 weeks later, she goes, the house is yours.
No way. That's how that happened. Wow, what a story.
Yeah. So
that was a big deal for a long time.
Oh my gosh, just a little story on that one. It's 200 feet long. Okay. So they moved, the guy, he always says he's going to move these things. They said, that was Flint Doyle out of Tommy Doyle, wonderful character. He said, we're going to move it and I'll let you know. I said, okay. So he calls me one day and said, hey, I got good news and bad news. I said, okay, what's the good news? He said, well, I moved the house. I said, well, I figured you would 5 miles an hour, not too hard at 2 o'clock in the morning. So he goes, but I have some bad news. I said, well, what happened? He goes, well, we were going to save all the roofs, but none of my guys framed it, so they all collapsed.
Oh no.
So what you got were these long buildings they looked like trailers, which is okay, but no way to keep the water out. So I got it up, and it was there on site. And so I went to the city of Benita. I said, I've got to put the roofs back. They collapsed before they got them here. And he goes, we ought to have a full set of architectural plans. Well, I had no jobs. I had no money. And I said, gee, I'm just going to put tarps over there, blue tarps. So we did that 4 different times as they just disintegrate. Finally, my carpenter, Terry Schmidt, said, I'm not doing that again. It just burns I'm not going to do that. So we just let the water come in. So instead of drilling holes all over the original floor, the water just came in for a couple of years. Well, everything turned black. The white ceilings weren't white anymore. So it took me a while. Then, of course, the city of Benita Springs had been waiting for me to fix the other 2 houses. We're sitting up on Lincoln logs, for about 3 years. So he said, if you don't move those 2 structures over on, Tennessee and Dean Street, we're going to move them to the landfill or we're going to make fire practice out of them.
Wow, really?
So
Burned out.
I had to push the one up on stilts and put T111 and paint it, got through that one. And then the other one, I pretty much had to, then I just had to make it look like it was cared for. And so I just put siding on it and just called it a day. But the Haldeman house was kind of hidden, so they didn't bother me on that one. Oh, I know. So I actually had 3 on skids. So one of them was a piece of the Haldeman house, which was on the corner across from the other 3 structures I'd moved. And they said, you're going to have to do something. I said, I had designed a house all the way around. The one part they said was not historic. It was this dining room kitchen. It was done much later than the original house. So I'd put it on a corner lot. But I never could get to it. And he said, so I picked it up, had to take the rails off that Oak Creek Bridge, take it over the bridge, and put it back with the house like it was originally.
Wow.
So I said, too bad. I'm just going to have to do this because otherwise they're going to take it and make it fire practice. So we got it all back together, Humpty Dumpty back together. But it took like 8 years to get that part done. It's just all labor by the time.
Yeah.
By the time you try to get these, they had these beautiful wood ceilings in there. It was only 2 areas that they hadn't painted the ceilings in that house. So, you went in there. It looked perfect. I told my carpenter, I said, hey, I want to save the ceilings just like it is, because everything is put together well. It's just designed just like the living room with these beautiful diagonals in the ceiling. And he said, no, I can't save it like this. You have to take it down and put it all back together and build a whole new ceiling and then put it back up. I said, no, just cable the beams up there and we can hold it up. No, I can't do that. So he said, I'm going to number every piece. I'm going to take it off. So he took it off and said, no, I kind of like the way it looks, vaulted up like a church. So we did that. So that turned out beautiful, but you have to take out everything and kind of start over. So that was part of that part of the house. I'm so tired of seeing. Now, back in the day, they could only cut 10-inch boards, in the sawmills. So every 10 inches, you had a piece of batting, so board and batting.
Okay.
So, and the outside of it was made the Haldeman house so unusual and unique for this area is back in 1876 when they built that house, it was one of 3 models. One of 3 model homes you could buy in Naples by the Naples Development Company. Now, there's a little history. So it was still on a postcard. You could buy that house, one of 3 models. It was the only one that lasted until when I moved it. But anyways, it had triangle battens. So they had triangular battens, which were made out of, looked like 3x6s, but they were really 2x4s back in the day. But by the time they cut them, they had enough material to make the top piece, the vertical, and then the bottom trim piece. So that's what's unique about the Haldeman house. And the original part that's still the piece they made, they built back in 1876. You can see the different dimensions of the wood and the detailing that they did. But that's really unique for this area. I did see one other example like that up in the New York area, but they're not it's not very common because Europeans used to build like that. But that's what makes it unique. And there's nothing like it in Naples. This was built in 1876. Now Palm Cottage was built in 1905, so it's quite a different. So it really it's that house, the Haldeman House, the one I live in now, is 150 years old this year.
Wow.
It's hard to believe.
That's awesome.
They say it's the oldest house in Southwest Florida. Not, of course, the Keys have really old houses, and St. Augustine really is.
Yeah.
But the history of architecture here is it's interesting. There's not a lot left in Naples because the lots are worth so much, and then now they're flooding more, and it's very hard to go through that. I mean, you have so much work to do afterwards. So most of the structures were not built up very much. In fact, this was only 18 inches off the beach when I moved that house, and there were big cypress logs like this big around that it sat on, which was kind of interesting to find.
Oh, they built it on that.
You never could see those until you took the structure off.
Oh,
there
amazing!
Really, yeah. But
that's what they would use. The big cypress log. They would use the big cypress
for
logs
the foundation.
No kidding.
Yeah, because they wouldn't rot. So the Haldeman House used to sit right next to the Naples Pier, and so they had all the big fishing tournaments. All the things were bought in there, and they'd have the celebrations there. Of course, the Naples Hotel, which was also built by the Naples Development Company, they had just done railroad rails all the way up. They would just roll carts right up to the hotel, straight up. It was straight up from the pier, and you'd hit right into the Naples Hotel. But that didn't last until like the 70s. I think they took it down in the 70s. I don't think it was here when I got here in 79. But anyways, it's hard to save these. We've tried several times on certain structures, and it's either they can't get it down the road, or the owners change their mind, or someone's going to save the lower floor elevation. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work out so good when you have a tidal surge of 9 feet.
Yeah, right.
So that's not always the best thing. But it's interesting to meet the families that lived in these structures. I got to know the Haldeman family, the Combs, and they're just delightful people from Louisville, Kentucky. The Haldeman House was purchased. I don't know if you know this, but at the turn of the century, there was no one. There was no one here. There was an auction for the Naples Development Company to buy 6,000 acres in Naples. The steamship Fearless, which brought everybody there because there weren't roads back then, and then you would get the 3 models that they had built, plus the Palm Cottage, plus the Naples Hotel. So the only person that showed up was Walter Haldeman. He owned the Louisville Courier-Journal newspaper, and he was the one that showed up, so he got everything. But that didn't last too long because he had owned the entire block where the house sat. And I guess a few years later, he got hit by a streetcar in St. Louis, supposedly. And so the family ended up owning it. Then they wanted to cut the property in half, so they sold half the property, and that's how the house ended up being the size it is. I think it had 3 fireplaces when you saw the picture of the house originally. When I moved it was only 1 fireplace. Okay. The rest of the structure, we were told, they actually people bought that lot and they built over the structure to keep the lower elevation. They didn't have to go to 17 feet to the lowest beam. Yeah, all the FEMA rules and all. But, anyways, it's been an interesting structure to save, and now the descendants come by and visit every year.
That's awesome.
Have their
That's
friends
really cool.
They say, hey, we've got some friends. They came in. Can they come up and see the house? Of course, I'll have a little cocktail party for them. And they just get the biggest kick out of it because they spent time there. And then I find paintings or pictures that were done from their house, and I said, hey, I found a really cool painting. I think you should really use it. It's in your house somewhere. So we always have a fun little visit that way. But that's kind of. There's a lot to do with those structures. It's not any different than just building a house. You just move it. They just pick it up and roll it down the road with those on a low boy. I mean, the rest is just getting the pilings in place, resting it back down, and then it's already there. It's just a show waiting to start.
You make it sound simple, but I don't think so. I think
it is. Then you have to try to hide the mechanics, make it look beautiful and. But there's certain things to do. There's always certain things you need to do and certain things you want to do, and not everything's practical. But they really are a big kick to get done and look at what you got accomplished.
Yeah. Well, has it always been your nature to kind of take on these challenges because they're just not ordinary things? They're just not everyday stuff that you do. And every one of those has been something that you had to deal with a lot. Not just different. The simple stuff.
Well, the projects I get to work on are very similar in some ways. You take these projects that have been neglected or outdated for years, and then turn them into something that's spectacular for the people that want something different. So you always have a start and a finish. So I'm used to doing that, but these aren't as easy as that. But they certainly keep your interest. And there's certain things you decide to do for the comfort or just the style or making the landscapes wonderful. And it's really, I can only live in one house, but it was fun to put them together.
Yeah.
It's not a moneymaker by any means.
Right. Yeah.
It's not something you want to do.
Yeah.
No, you would think it could be, but not in this area. I mean, maybe if you're in the Northeast or something.
Yeah.
And people really revel over those things.
But your eye for design and your eye for what it is that you do, that creative side, is that when did you notice that was something that was part of you, like who you were?
Very early on. Yeah, I really love music and love art, and I was doing the art very early, and nobody else wanted to do it. When you're in a class and people could care less about that, but I always had an interest in that. But I think it was just a lot of travel, a lot of European world travel that kind of exposed you to different architecture and cultures, and I think it's just part of you as you grow. But I always had an interest in it, and it just expands as your palette gets larger. You kind of want to do more, and so you're always trying to work outside the box and trying to make something unusual and make it work for whatever the people want to. My clients usually what they want to see, or we get these postage shaped lots, and it's like they want Versailles and a postage stamp there. So it's like a shotgun. You got to create everything. It's got to look wonderful in the daytime. It's got to really rock at night. And so now you get everything with LED lighting and with the audio and just when you start from scratch. We have to actually build all of our projects like most builders do a brand new home. We have to get in and do all the underground as you're putting the projects together, because you can't go back. It's not like a Band-Aid. Well, some people treat it like that, but that's not the way to do incredible projects. You just got to know where you're going, what you need, and then get everything. You have to babysit it all the way. That's really unusual for our industry. I design, build. Most people just design or they build, but I started doing that early on when I got to Naples, and it just became a real passion. Just putting it together, and then the best part about our industry is that it's also it could be a curse too, but having to maintain projects. We have our own maintenance division, and that's what makes the projects, develop over time. And it's exciting to see the changes. And I have some gardens I've worked on for 40 years in Naples. I'm starting another one the next week or two. That's hard to say. They have 3 or 4 owners, and it's just it's hard. It's unusual you have that, but the original bones of the garden are great, and so they just after time with lack of maintenance, you have to redo certain areas because they just don't withstand the test of time without good maintenance. So everything in our world is fertilizer, pruning, and pest and disease control here, which is a lot more work than the East Coast, where I'm from.
It is. Why?
Well, our weather is different. Like for instance, on the East Coast, and I've noticed there's a change from when I grew up there, but there's always a 5 to 10 mile an hour breeze. And now here you'll get that when the afternoon rains, but there is just a lot more air is moving because the Atlantic Ocean, there's a lot more violent. The Gulf is so calm, you just don't get that. And so the insect populations, they have a lot of different insects, and they're a lot more severe here in how much they damage the foliage. There we didn't have that much trouble. We could have oleanders back then. No one plants the oleander now. Except for the city of Fort Myers and the medians. But anyways, it's interesting to see. You just have to constantly, and then you have to change. You have to change the pesticides because they get immune to certain pesticides over time. So you have to change up. So that's always a challenge with the environment. It's hard to believe, but that's what goes into gardens.
What about species? What have you seen over time from? Because I remember growing up here and seeing we only had the one lizard, and now I see all these crazy lizards that we have. We have a lot of different over time in Naples that we have more than just things that have crept into our.
Oh, are you talking about good things or bad things?
I don't know. Both. I kind of both.
Palettes, yeah. I've always put my time into the landscape architect conferences, and we have a FNGA program, which is a state foliage association. I've always gone to the annual meetings there. And what's interesting, you might have 2,400 vendors. So you're seeing all the newest in the industry. And not many people really like to go do that, and they don't. I never see people that I know at the land, especially the horticulture end of our business. And it's really sad to see that, because that's what makes gardens. Besides the framework, of all the hardscape, which I love to do. The other is just it's such an orchestra of different materials that grow at different rates with different types of light, and so it's fun to put all that together. But it's not something everybody does in Naples. But it's not as far as the insect populations, that's changed, and we're just again trying to modify that. But actually, just growing a healthy garden keeps a lot of insects at bay. They actually go after the things that are stressing, But we also have things that come into play that you didn't expect. Back in the 60s, 70s, we got that lethal yellowing hit all the coconuts in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. I mean, it nearly wiped them all out. And then so they developed the resistant varieties, the green Malayan and the yellow Malayan and the Maypan, which is and they're all beautiful now. They don't say that it's not going to happen again, but they're resistant. I mean, it's proof, But anyways, that's interesting. And then you have all the other things that start happening, the bronzing of the leaves and the date palms and all. We think some of these things are bulletproof, but you have to remember we're taking different species that were grown in Arizona in really dry climates, and we're putting them in Florida where we get 52 inches of rain. It's all at one time. So there are challenges with that, I think, over time, and then just things develop. But it's interesting to watch that. So the people at the University of Florida are always doing research on different things. You just always have to watch it. Yeah, we had a lot of trouble. We have a lot of trouble in this area, even with pine borer. And so it goes in phases where they get into the pines that they'll kill forest of pines. I mean, so you can spray them, but that's really a challenge. So our native forest may not be native. I mean, the Everglades is beautiful because it's natural, but there's a lot that goes to those natural systems. We start modifying it and it starts changing it.
What happens to when they there's a preserve that's behind our house off Livingston, and this area that nobody's supposed to touch, but when all the development goes up around it, what does it do to that?
Interesting. They did research. You know what? It's kind of funny. This is a little more horticulture based than historic, but the research shows that all these developers that go into these forests, which is where development's happening, the forest, the interior of the forest, the trees have never been exposed to wind or conditions because they're hidden by the other trees. So the minute you start developing and you cut part of the forest, you've left that wall of trees that might be 100, 150 feet tall. The problem is their cambium, their outside layers of their genetics, was built for an interior purpose, and they didn't have the outside elements that would make them strong to not topple over. So a lot of the problems they're having with that type of situation, which you see it out, in the Golden Gate area a lot, because everything else has been developed on the coast here. But they can have trouble with that. So it's just falling over. So you kind of have to be careful not to have it near your house if you can help it. Some of those lots are so huge they don't have to, but some people try to save everything. Well, that's great, but you have to know that you also have some liabilities with that. It can just fall over. Yeah. And then we've had trouble. The biggest problem we have in Naples, I got to do the roadways for Bonita, 10 years ago. So we try to find resistant materials that wouldn't be too hard to maintain, because you're not sure the maintenance level you're going to get after the installation. But we designed 5.5 miles on 41. And I work with one of my landscape architects, Pam Lulich. She works for the county here, and she does 153 miles of roadways. So we're always talking about species that work and things that don't work, and which would take more fertilizer. And so we kind of honed all that down to just really a simple palette that goes down 41. And then we got to do the master plan for Old 41. And that was great. So we could calm that area down and make it more livable for people to walk and places to park and make it fun. And now you're seeing a rebirth of that, which is 20 years late. But it's fun to see people come from Naples and enjoy it.
Yeah, they're going that way now. I know it used to be the other way.
Well, it's live entertainment.
It's exciting up there.
Back in the day when I got here in '79, there were like 2 places to go out and dance and enjoy a drink. And so after a time, it was actually more fun to to go to the East Coast. So we'd just go Alligator Alley and
Yeah.
go over there. Of course, it was a lot more going on over there.
Yeah.
But then they had those started doing the DC-3s or DC-9s, the tail draggers
Yeah.
that would go to Key West. And I knew some people that worked for PBA. So we got $5 tickets. So that was really a good good value to get
Yeah.
out of the area and go to, go to crazy Key West. But that was in the 80s when things were really quite demure there. You didn't have the cruise ship showing up with 2,500 people.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. They didn't have that. Yeah. Yeah.
They had T-shirt shops, but not on the scale they are now.
No, that's
but,
right.
That is
Changed
actually,
it. Yeah.
for all the historic architecture you can see, that is just the most fun to get on a bicycle and just enjoy, historical architecture. It was like definitely a century away and more. And it's wonderful to see how much they've saved of all that. And that's because it's popular there.
Yeah.
And it's probably more expensive to try to do something new. But because it's all rock there, so anything you want to try to do is sitting on coral rock.
Oh, is that right? In the Keys, yeah.
Yeah, they have to blast out. If you want a swimming pool, you're cutting that rock out.
Really?
Oh, it's
wow.
all solid coral.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
So, anyways, but that is that, and St. Augustine's got some beautiful historic architecture too. I mean, amazing what they've done to that St. George Street. It's like Disney World. I've never seen anything in 40 years. That place has changed. Things change over time.
Yeah.
Especially in Naples too. But I'm sorry to see the architecture kind of disappear. It's about 5 blocks so wonderful down in Old Naples.
Yeah.
And Paul Arsenault still has this wonderful 100-year-old home. And
Yeah.
it's fun,
I was
fun
in
to
there.
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in
great.
his studio anyway, where Zach and I went over to take a
Does
look at
beautiful art.
Yeah.
Beautiful paintings, and he's always saved all the old structures by painting them and to memorialize them. And it's great to see that.
Yeah.
How many people have that kind of interest?
Yeah. He's really been a big catalyst for preserving what we have too. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. And he actually spends a lot of time talking about it and doing like symposiums or, he'll do his art show, but he'll talk about what he saw and what he got to enjoy before it disappeared.
Yeah. And the stories of the people too that he's met over time. Yeah.
Incredible.
It's neat to see.
Incredible career. But anyways, that kind of covers the gamut. And Bonita, there's a few things. I actually didn't talk about I got to save a few things. So the Historic Society in Bonita Springs has always been kind of a small group, when I started working with them 20-something years ago. And there was a couple places that they were so interested in trying to preserve. There was one that was 1910. It was the old mayor's house, 1910. It was from Bay City, Michigan. It was their largest home they ever shipped over, and I think it fell off when it was in Oak Creek or going down the Imperial River in many pieces. But anyways, they got all back together and built the house, and it was the largest home. And I was told that one of the ladies that was trying to save it for all these years, she decided to buy a new house, and she sold it to someone. And all of a sudden, turned out the people that were going to buy it backed out, and she'd already bought her other home. So this Historic Society said, "Hey, can you work with us and let's buy that thing together?" I said, "You're kidding." I said, "I have like 3 of them, and they're not finished." "Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We'll help you with it." So so we got all the way to the day of the closing, like a day or two before. I got the call and said, "Oh, Christian, yes. I'm sorry, we really can't do that with someone that's not as a C3 corporation, and you're not." And so I said, "Really?" "So you mean I have to restore this all myself? I already got like 3 or 4 going." He says, "Oh, that's okay. Yeah, we just really can't do it." So I got involved with that one. So I restored it as much as I could. It was a big structure, and it had a swimming pool and a 6-car garage and an acre property. I was going to do my nursery there, but as it turns out, during 2007, I pretty much took care of that one. But
yeah, for a lot of people, yeah.
It's a lot. So you get involved in things. You learn a lot about these things, and you renovate kitchens and bathrooms. It's usually the first to go, but it's all fun, and
What's a project from Naples in your early years in the first part of your career that was fun for you that you remember vividly?
Oh, I have to tell you, that's great. I'm so glad you asked. It's the one that I've worked back to 1984. We did Naples. I did Naplescape with the company I worked with, and we got this project on the beach, and it was an old Asian style home, but it'd been it was a little bit dilapidated, a lot actually. Not the interior so much, but the exterior just. Well, the swimming pool was open air, so the owner just didn't want to get carried away by mosquitoes. It was funny. I had been to China. I had gotten hired by one of my colleagues was working in Hong Kong and said, "Hey, you got to come over here. These guys don't know anything. This Hong Kong, this company from London, they don't have any landscape architects to know anything about tropical foliage. And here we are in Hong Kong. We have two new town parks we're doing, and you got to come over. They don't know anything about it." So I went over there for 2 weeks, and he said, I got over there, and my friend David Hoshman said, "Hey, I didn't really work out a deal for you to work here, but you can work it out with the owner." So I thought I had all this set up. Anyway, so he said, you're only going to work a week for us. I said, I'm going to send you to China, to this old town, 2,000-year-old town called Suzhou. He said, I just came from there. They just opened it up from Red China. I mean, it's been communist for like, I don't know, 100 years. So I went, and this little town. If you go to Epcot, they actually show all the buildings and the parts of the gardens at Epcot. I was so surprised, but it was because it's famous for the Chinese people. But anyways, they came back from that trip. That was an interesting trip. They never seen Americans. You felt like a movie star. Everywhere you went, you're in a rickshaw. Every man, woman, and child, they'd stop what they were doing, looked right at you like, you're kidding. They're all wearing, dark blue pants, light blue shirts. And the signs all say one baby only, yeah. And, they're all, I'm not kidding. Everyone and their family looked at what you're doing. Anyways, they never seen Americans. Of course, I was 6 feet. They're like 5 foot something.
You really stood out. Yeah.
Anyway, so we got back from that trip, and this guy, buys this place on the beach. It's on 6 acres, and it flooded. The whole property flooded. So you saw the mowers tried to mow it, and there's all these black marks where the wheels went, trying to go across the muck. Because all the water would come down this one area and just sit there. It had a little lake, but it was just very wet. So I had just seen all these gardens, They were wonderful. So renovated the pool, added the screen, added new decking, everything. They had a sunken garden. It was the idea of a sunken garden, but nothing was there. So we did a waterfall down there and all this wonderful little Asian stones and pebbles everywhere and beautiful foliage. And then the upper part, we had to do a long driveway. The driveway was 850 feet long. I said, we have to.
Was this in Port Royal?
The one with the orange gates.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So anyway.
It was our favorite trip to go down there and see that place.
84.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
So it was like seeing them. It was like seeing something out of this world.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I said, the other people did those little gates right by the street. Not many of them. There's like one or two in Naples. I said, I bet we could get that approved. So we did. I said, let's use the same panels that they used on the house. They took these plywood panels and they put the river rock on them. They kind of cemented the river rock down, and then they kind of glazed it. So that was all the walls of the house were done with like that with some dark wood detailing. I said, let's do the front gate like that, and we'll do the same architecture. So this architect drew it up. So that was the entrance, and we had this. I designed the gates for them, and so those are still there. It's amazing. So that's exactly the way it was. Then the driveway was 850 feet. So back in the day, who could afford an 850-foot long driveway, even if you had that much? So we did it out of Beaumonite. So I did this. They looked like it looked like distressed concrete it looked like a real material. And then we used a cobblestone, 4x4 cobblestone, 2-foot border on both sides, going all the way. And of course, I lifted the grade up. We dug the lake 3 times the size, so I had all the fill, so I was able to resculpt the whole property. So you raised it up and dropped it down, and it came up. And then near the house, we got to do this 250-foot waterfall with the stone bridges going over it. And that went into the lake. And then we did create an island in the lake we took one of those old continental bridges they used to show in the old landscape architecture magazine, the architecture magazine, a regular bridge, and we added the detailing to make it Asian looking. Yeah. We painted it orange like the gates up front. So did that. And then over near the house, we did this zigzag bridge, which was really popular in those old gardens. So it was done like this with undermount lighting. And so there was all the things you'd want to see in an Asian garden.
Yeah.
And then, of course, landscape, the whole thing, to encompass 6 acres, which is unheard of in Naples. So, it had a lot of large trees we planted. They're still all there. And Then, as the story is told, he bought the place to the south, which was the Mediterranean house, and it just stayed like it was. Then he bought the property to the south, to the north, and that was another 6 acres. So he owned 18 acres right on Naples Beach, which was the largest parcel on Naples. But he's quite a guy, from Canada. He had all the school bus.
He was Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had the school bus enterprises and the waste disposal in Canada. So he did pretty well. So he was able to provide a nice lifestyle, I think, for himself there. It was very unusual for Naples,
Yeah.
really unusual.
I remember that so well because that was
Yeah.
something I would talk about all the time, that we lived in this place, this area that had this house that it looked like you went to the Far East. It was beautiful. It was so neat to see that. I remember driving by it all the time just to go down there and see it.
Yeah, and we moved like 30-foot clear trunk coconuts. They were all over. They were just all out of scale. So we took them all and put them behind the house. So then they just kind of popped up right behind the house. Looked really great. And then at night, of course, they could light them up and it looks great near the beach. So we were able to repurpose anything they did have there, which wasn't a lot, and then use some really unusual things from the Bahamas and things that would make it on the beach. And, so it was a really fun job. And to watch it all these years, it's been 40 years.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was a fun one, to really the Donahue property. I didn't get to finish. So I did the pool area and all the hardscape, but then I opened my own company in 1987. But so I do design build, and I've been doing it since then. But it's the fun part about our work is once you're doing research, you're finding different materials to use, and then you find different applications to use them. And then you use your other palette plus all the new things you get to use, and you're always improving. You're trying to invent something with every job, and you are, because you're taking what you did and you just improve it, change it a little bit. Materials come out that are new. Sometimes we have access to everything now, so it's just a matter of cost. Then everything's labor,
Yeah. What's different now about when you started? I know a lot has changed, but what do you like and what do you not like?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't finish the story about that driveway. We used Bowmanite, which is just poured, scored. They just put the imprint. They press it down and get the imprint so it looks like cobblestones. It looks like natural stone, but it was just concrete with coloring in it. You know what? It lasted the test of time. I'm surprised. The only problem with poured concrete, when you have settling, you can't repair the cracks. So that's the only downside. But when you have big projects, it was a great way to go for square footage per cost. It wasn't asphalt, which is what people were still doing when I got here. But it was concrete. And then the more you add to concrete, the more expensive it gets. So if you put pebbles in concrete and give it a color, you're at the price of marbles. People, do you want this or you want the marble? There's different things that happen. So what's happened is everything is labor. By the time you do hardscapes, you've got to do so much for the driveway, so much. You're creating the biggest thing for these properties some of them are so small. You really want to give people access and trying to create all the movement through the garden. Where the people are going to spend their time. Where are the breezes going to be? Where is the sun in the afternoon? Different times of year when they're going to be here, and where do you make the most out of this? Some of them, they're just so. Some of the lots are so tiny, but it's just trying to do the right thing in the right spot. And just by the time we get some of these architectural footprints are so large, and by the time you end up with what's left over, then you got the drainage to pick up now, which is great for the city of Naples, but there's huge drainage all over the place, so you have to dodge that. That becomes a bit of a challenge, but it's a good thing to be able to manage water on a site. You just have to work around it. You get a lot of challenges with that. So what's changed in the years is we have better products. We have LEDs, which used to have. It was so expensive to do outside landscape lighting. There really weren't quality products. Everything was cast. Of course, the cast materials don't hold their color. The paint chips off, and so now almost everything's brass or copper. Most of it's brass or painted brass, so it doesn't really change with time. So that's great. Now we have companies that do like plug and play. We use the best in the country. The coastal source people, everything was developed in the Keys for the salt water. And everything is like an extension cord with a casing over it. It can go under at the bottom of the dock. You want to light into it, just toss it in the water. There you go. Everything is just sealed up. Right. That's the hardest part with outdoor lighting. It just disintegrates with the salt fertilizer and the chlorides in the water. So that's improved. So we have products that work great. So the lighting has changed dramatically. I run my lights all night long. I just love seeing it. Love seeing it. When I wake up, I want to see the garden just like I want to see it. that costs pennies. But also now they have the audio systems that are just like a concert, which they didn't used to be. And some of those products just disintegrate. These people we work with, it's the best in the industry. It sounds like you're at the Philharmonic right there in front of you. It's like,
and it's outside.
It's outside, and you have so many products to choose from. I mean, it's insane. You can do anything. You just have to worry about bothering your neighbors.
Yeah.
But sound is directional. So if you have neighbors like
I try to tell my wife that because I have speakers all over in the back. I love audio sound too.
They used to do the rock speakers. They still do some that look like that, but the sound is just incredible. What's changed in time, but everything we're putting together usually involves everything is how do the materials last over time with the conditions here. So we're using even on the pool we worked with for the house down there on the beach. We just finished across from the beach on Gordon Drive. The entire back area, and this was the owner's choice, was totally like 3-inch decking that was like, I think there were 30-inch pavers, and they're on pedestals. They're on plastic pedestals, so you have no grout getting efflorescence. That's the first time I ever. So everything drains between the pavers into a shower pan, and it just drains out. So there is no water that stays on the pool deck because it all drains between the pavers and just a little. You can't even tell there's no joint. It's beautiful. Of course, wherever you have to do the stairs and connections to other paving, you're going to have some mortar, but because you have to put it together. But this one we got to do also. We were lucky to have all these stones sent over from Italy the way they wanted them. All the steps were 4-foot long, solid pieces, 3.5-inch stone, routed out for this undermount lighting, which is beautiful.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful when you get to do that. It's not very often, but it's what the owners wanted, and so it's what makes it special. Plus, this house we got to do. They actually did a 40-foot loose light panel on the back of the pool. You can see people swimming. Yeah, it's pretty fun. But it's challenging. That one, you end up with these setbacks. Some of these lots you're working on, they might be 120 feet wide, but they're not very deep. So you have front setbacks, you have rear setbacks, and then you have the setbacks for the pools, and it's all based on the elevation of the road. You can only be 30 inches above the ground of the road out front. So when that structures are 17 feet in the air, the lowest beam, you're talking about being only 3 feet from the difference from the street elevation, which is 3. That's what made the loose light panel at the top. It was a children's pool, and then we got down to the main pool because there's just no way. You had to follow the rules.
Yeah.
So we have the setbacks in Naples, and strange constraints have really changed how you do things in Naples. You're restricted by some of those things, just like the architecture. They used to be able to do whatever they want, but now you have angle of light, so that the structures are built where the light can get to the neighbors, and so and that's smart. And there's height restrictions, which is also good. That's what makes, and I think that's the special part about Naples. I always feel like it's never going to change, because when you drive down Naples, the structures are more than 35 feet, and they have to be a certain style where they're not just straight up, which you'll see in Benito Estero and Fort Myers.
That's different because they don't have the same zoning.
No. So Collier, city of Naples has gotten, I won't say Collier County, excuse me. City of Naples is very, very, very smart to bring that in, because of all of Port Royal, Aquilane Shores, and mooring, all those, it's important when you have those size lots that you're not overdoing it for a neighbor when they maybe purchased, years ago, and it shouldn't change too much. The light does change when you have a neighbor, but anyways, I think it's good. I think some things are good, some things are over-regulated. I don't think some things make a difference. It's just whoever's in vogue at the point in time. But I think as far as building projects, the materials have changed. People are able to invest in better materials, because it's all labor, whether you're putting down porcelain or stone, or just doing a lot of our. I designed driveways that had grass in them 25 years ago. It was not popular. They ran an article in the home section of Naples Daily News, half-page color picture, and I'd written a story, and they ran the entire story just like it was written. It was like a page and a half, and I got 2 phone calls. 40,000 people read it. I got 2 phone calls, and one of them turned down a job, but he never did the driveway. So now you see almost every driveway has green astroturf. We were doing real grass in it back then, but it's funny how things have changed over time. And I did get to do. I'm about to redo a house. You mentioned gardens. I got to work on. So I got to work with one of the Federated Investors board of directors on the Marco River. It was my first design award, I think I mentioned. But anyways, the new owners had bought it, and it's an interesting project because they took two houses and blended them together with glass corridors. And I had to take a kidney-shaped pool and make it into an Asian style, like geometric with fire and everything. And it was made it a fun project to work on. So I get to go do it over after 40 years.
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
Kind of fun, for some new owners. So some of those sites, and I got to do the first disappearing-edge pool for one of the other investors, one of the other board of directors of Federated Investors. It was the first disappearing-edge pool in Naples.
What is it called?
It's the vanishing edge where the water
right.
drips over the
Yes.
back edge.
Yeah.
But they were on the Marco River, so I have photographs of that. It's amazing when you get a large body of water and you have that water just dripping over the back. Of course, now it's just like old hat. Everybody does it. But back then, this was like 25 years ago. That was not happening.
Yeah.
And if you did do it, you didn't have that kind of view. The Marco River, it could have been almost like Naples Bay, but the Marco River, it's fast. It's really a long distance. So the impact you got was just amazing for a project in Naples at that time. So I got to be a forerunner in pool design and driveway design and doing things that weren't really happening. And that it was just the clients like to see something new, and some clients could afford it. Some people went ahead and did it because they liked it, and we did different materials and still made it look similar to the design. And sometimes it's just application, but maintenance over time is what we try to tell the people. You're going to have a lot of weather on this. You're going to have this. You have cars driving on. You don't want white paving. You're going to not look good. Well, if you put a little texture in it, you won't have as much. But there's always something to look at. But.
And design and build, you do so both. So what's that been like over time? Especially because labor intensive. You talk about a lot of labor. Everything's cost of that.
Yeah, when I started my business, my first year I was doing design only, and then as soon as the projects got ready, I couldn't not do the build because I'd been working for a company in Naples for 8.5 years doing that. So I started doing the build, but I had to hire people to do the heavy work, and I had people that I knew that would do the small planting, but I hired a general a landscaper to do all the crane work because I just didn't have any equipment. I didn't have people to run it. So we did that for a while, and I have to mention one of my favorite projects of all time. I got to go to St. Bart's with one of my clients from Naples. He bought an interesting Wilbert hamster.
Love St. Bart's.
Yeah. So I had done the place. He had bought the house that's on Cutlass Lane that has all the landscape. They say Tom Selleck used to live there. That's the first time I heard that. But I was on the Sweet Liberty last week, and I said, I don't know about that.
Did they say that on the boat?
They did, but I told them the last time I was on the boat, I said, wait a minute. I worked on that. Wilbert Hampton had it. Then the Hugo Boss people bought it. So I don't know who has it now, but I think they're still there. But they bought the lot next door, which really made it quite a spread. And it's the only one that has that much landscaping, all in Naples Bay. I mean, it's just amazing. And I get to do the Zeiser house, which was on the corner, which I guess.
Lenny Zeiser,
Lenny Zeiser. I get to do that with him and Wanda. That was a riot. Oh, yeah.
I think he met Wanda at my dad's salon back in the
Really?
80s. Yeah.
That's
And
not
Wanda
funny.
worked with my dad, and they met that way. And that's
It
their
was
story.
funny story about one of their parties.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to put that on film or not. But it was kind of, Michael Kors was there. And
Is that right? Really?
It involved one of his garments it was a fashion like faux pas. But we can go into that. But anyways, got to do that. That was fun because I got to go to St. Bart's.
He had a teak house? What did he have?
It was, yeah, he had that. It was all coral, real coral walls with cheek detailing and a slate mansard roof, designed by Harry Weiss out of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The only bizarre thing about that house was the living room floor was lifted 8 inches above the main floor, which is if you're having, cocktails for a while, I'm not sure it really worked that well. And I'm not sure about that here in Florida. I don't even know why you do it in Chicago unless you're worried about things crawling on the floor. But that was a wild house. It was beautiful. Yeah. But anyways, that was all right. But I went to St. Bart's. When you work on an island like that, those the government has control over who owns the property, like they used to in the Bahamas a lot, and they probably still do. But so they control what you do with those properties. And this gentleman that bought the property, the foundations were already there in place, which I think was to his benefit, because you didn't have to go through all the permitting of that whole thing from the very beginning, because you're building on top of the mountain.
It's a rock there too.
Yeah, you're building on the top of the mountain. It's really not.
Yeah.
It's not a great thing, but they were already there. So you're kind of grandfathered in, is what I'm going to say. But anyways, you had to drive 45 degrees up, do a hairpin turn, and go up to the garage. And then from the garage up, there were 93 steps from the bottom where you parked to the top suite.
Wow. Well, that's a workout.
So there were five different suites. The master suite was at the top. Yeah. So anyways, we worked on it. Here's an interesting story nobody knows. So the gentleman that I worked with, he said, hey, I'm going to take you to some nurseries around here. You can see what they grow here, and we can use it in my garden. I said, okay, great. So takes me to this nursery. I kid you not, there's 1 gallon material where it's in these plastic baggies. Okay. The plant's like, it's it's all stressed out. It's like wilting, has some bug problems. And he says, okay, and I can get the palms. So like this big. I said, Wilbur, that's not going to work. I said, I can't do that. So I decided, okay, this is what we'll do. We'll buy all the plant material for him. We're going to put it in an air conditioning container. We're going to ship it to St. Bart's. It was in there for 2 weeks. I mean, we had plumbago, blue plumbago, everything green. We had 20-foot coconuts, 20 foot instead of like 3 foot. I said, I'm not going to make this guy wait. He's like in his 70s, okay? So anyways, we got it all there. They opened the container, and everything was as dark green as the day we put it in there. 2 weeks. No sunlight. So we got it all arranged, and we spent a week putting it all up the slope with this guy had to run a backhoe. You're working on this slope, and he's like, putting this thing. It was a little challenging. That was quite fun because it was different.
Yeah.
And the place was so unspoiled. See, you have Nevis right next door. But back then, you're talking about probably 30 years ago, very unspoiled. You were getting the popular people. You had Hermes, shops were starting to show up. There were, but there weren't that many. I mean, but what was there, and the French restaurants were great.
Yes,
and of course, the French wine wasn't too bad either.
Yeah,
but right. But anyways, that was an interesting job to get to do. That was not in Naples.
Mm-hmm. Did you fly in when you went into
the harrowing trip? Yeah, are you kidding? On the hanging from a seatbelt? Yeah, I think I almost lost my my dinner. That wasn't much, but I said, get ready for this one. Yeah, straight down, straight down.
And you
see the plane underwater. That's like, that one didn't make it.
Oh, great! Didn't stop
can you guys
in time.
Can you take that away? That's like
right.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah. I remember they gave me some cough stuff and my old office was on where my office is now, down the street, and we had an area that didn't drain in the little utility area, and I thought, I'm finally going to get this thing to drain, so I put Clorox down there. That didn't work. I got to put the Drano down there, and I was sitting there for so the gas is making it.
Yeah, right.
So that happened right before I went to St. Bart's. So I get there, and I forgot to take my medication. Because you have to get up at 4 a.m. to get to Miami, and then Miami to Puerto Rico, just St. Martin, St. Martin. And finally you end up at
puddle jumper from St. Martin.
There it is, right? Yeah, right when it's getting dark. There's no runway lights. Okay, but anyways, I got up in the morning after having a couple glasses of wine. I decided since I missed the medication in the morning, I had to take my night to go take it. So I got up in the morning, and all of a sudden, I felt like a million needles poking me everywhere. I said, oh, no, this isn't right. So I'd over-medicated, so I had to go to the infirmary. So they give you these little pills, and it's like, gee, it looks like one of those candies that are like the size of a nickel.
Yeah.
And so everything's in French. They said, you need to take this. And so I'm there. I put one in, and I couldn't breathe. And I'm all by myself. And I'm just, where I thought you were kind of supposed to, whatever. It wouldn't go down. I was trying, it's like, it's a fizzy. They didn't say you're supposed to put it in water. It's like a fizzy, right? Really? Oh my gosh, it's a little challenging. It's being somewhere where they speak a different language where the physicians don't tell you really what you're supposed to do. Right? Yeah. Kind of my funny story about St. Bart's.
Yeah, they have Yeah, everything's in France. I mean, it's like being in France. So it's very French.
Yeah.
It is the whole thing about it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it there, and the food. My
I
wife
haven't
loves to
been
shopping
back.
now.
I bet it's great though.
We went the last couple years ago. My wife loves to shop there, and food, of course. Is
That has
just
nothing to do with
outrageous.
historic architecture, but that's okay.
Yeah, well,
Just
St.
telling-
Bart's is the wealth there and the wealthier and the people who are there and here. But I guess at that time too, it was before it was really known. It was more of a more discreet, I think.
It was very discreet. You stay in these wonderful little villas there, and they were like staying at like any hotel in Naples. I mean, not even a nice one.
Yeah.
It was really reasonable back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was just, and then even these simple things just had wonderful views of the water. Your own little kitchenette there. It was like they were all like set up like that. Because I think people, when they go there, they really want more than just a night stay. But maybe back then, it's kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah. We're just scratching the surface of the incredible life and career of Christian Busk. In part 2, we're going to step inside the high-stakes world of luxury design. Christian is going to tell us what it's really like when the world's top architects and designers clash over a vision. And he'll share the story of a mysterious late-night voicemail that changed everything for one of his biggest projects. Plus, we're going international. Christian takes us on his 15 journeys to Brazil to meet the man considered the greatest landscape architect in history. And he explains why he thinks modern technology might be killing the soul of our art and music. You don't want to miss the conclusion of this conversation.